with a classic matchup. English versus Chinese. Yawn. Boring. Get out. What are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing it because these two players are likely to have a very different approach. Bro has been missing for a while. I haven't been able to check in this guy in, it feels like, a hot minute. Kind of surprised I actually haven't seen more of him, considering that this feels like it would have been his patch. For those that are unfamiliar with Bro is originally an AoE 2 player. I think he only owned a few thousand. I think it was about, 7,000 or 8,000 in total, but it was AoE 2. It was a lot early days. And in fairness, I feel like the money, what we've seen in AoE 4 isn't atypically what you see in AoE 2 in one go. So 8,000, not too bad. I was expecting Bra to kind of really grind out and stick at it, because if you aren't familiar with this guy, he was top 80 in the game easily earlier in 2022. And actually, the sad part is if he'd consistently grinded it out, this probably would have been a damn good time to have been making a performance, making a stand, shall we say, because Bra is a filthy little Abasa spammer. I feel like actually it must be his most played Civ in the game, yet he hasn't really had the impact we were looking for. In fact, I'm not even sure if Bra's been competing in the Road to Wallow. I haven't been able to catch any of his games. And right now, he's ranked 182nd in the world, so has been sinking a little bit on the ranks. Well, this one's not going to be easy for him. Bra probably just hopped in. He's like, oh, another one of these I accounts. I'm going to poke him in the eyes and take the win. However, this I is appropriately the captain, which is why he gets so many eyes. It is the Mister. That's right. Playing as the English in the yellow, we've got Mister up against Bra. He's just started playing again. Mister, he finished farming season a few days ago, and now he's hard on the grind, hard on the climb, and it's already paying off. If you haven't checked the leaderboards in the last day or two, you might want to refresh, because right now, Mister, this account is up in 15th place and climbing. Out of the game for a while, but only physically. In his heart and in his mind, he was always playing it, and it's really been showing. Mister just coming in with innovation after innovation in these pub games. Experimentation is key. It's like this dude has been constantly in college his whole life. But when he turns up to college, every time we see him, he's actually not there as a student. He's there as the tutor. Let's see what he can teach us today as the English. So, opening up, we are going to see him rush up with the Council Hall. Interestingly enough, no interest in getting the farm set up. He's going to be going onto the stone quickly, though. This is an interesting opening, actually. Sometimes we see people go into the deer for a quick castle age. Sometimes we see people just set up the farms and insulate themselves to a prolonged feudal and eventual castle. This is a very different kind of opening. I would expect Mister to play the secondary TC onto the deer stack for optimal gathering. It could also be that he chooses to secure his wood line, though, concerned that there might be a risk of tower rushing coming out from the Chinese. Also, keep in mind the Chinese are a lot more spooky right now in feudal because of the Chuge Nu build-up, but it takes a while. In this specific matchup, I feel like Chinese players are less likely to mass Chuge Nu in the first 10 minutes, because where you really start to see that impact of that unit type versus Lombos is when you get into 20 or 30 plus. That's when you can run them through. And also, keep in mind that Chinese players at the moment are still facilitating greed. Due to a map like this, they feel like they're enabled to do it. Because Altai is just that type of condensed map that usually allows you to get away with a 2-3 TC boom. If you needed any proof of that, look at the fact that an English player is doing it against the Chinese. Yes, that's right. The English do still have a Castle Age option. I still feel like Castle Age rushing is pretty effective for the English if you can't get in early. The issue with trying to go in on the Chinese early is there's a high likelihood that they can just produce horsemen to counter you out. We already mentioned the Chuge Nu. The other thing is the static defenses. Although the Imperial Academy comes first, the Barbican follows up so quickly that usually when you try to double down on harassment as the English, I feel like you just get kind of stuck. You either win or you lose the game very quickly. And I think what we're going to see out of Mister is the feigned aggression. He's very good at this. First longbowman comes out, second one to follow. Don't expect a third. Expect him to now wait. He loves to do this. We saw him actually do it against Viper earlier on in the pit. The whole idea is he now wants to draw Bra into feudal, and he wants to gauge how much he invests in it. Depending on how much Bra chooses to build, then allows Mister to make a choice. He either doubles down on feudal or goes for castle. Speaking of feudal, has been reached by both players now. Walls have gone up. Nice attempt to block the walling. In fact, he blocks it long enough that he might be able to snipe one villager. But one longbowman on his own is not good enough. Sadly, up against the Chinese, they build these walls just too bloody quickly. He can still wrap north side, though. And there's no easy way for Bra to wall that because he didn't move out sooner. So he's going to be forced to make that reaction. And that's exactly what Mister's been waiting for. Notice that he has not been pushing additional longbows. It's only the 2. And the crazy part is that Bra shifted his scout north side, so he didn't actually get that information straight away. From his perspective, with the info he has, it makes sense to him that there's going to be 5 or 6 longbowmen coming. So he's now going to probably push out 3 to 4 horsemen to defend. That's a heavy hit to your eco. These are 120 resources each. So far, your opponent is only 90 resources in the hole. Instead, you're already 240. Wait, I say 90 resources? 180 resources in the hole. So yeah, you're already now deeper in the penny pot. I hope he doesn't push more, because this is definitely a bait out of Mister. He has no intent of building additionals now. The TC's already going up. He's going to look to scale. Now, bruh, he kind of has 2 choices. He can either invest in more horsemen and try to raid, but doing this against the English is very difficult. Horsemen don't dive English base very well due to the double TC arrow fire. You get wheeled down very quickly despite your missile resistance. So it's better for Bruh to realize he got a little bit scammed here and stop, and now look to go for his secondary TC as quickly as possible with the Barbican as well. Instead, though, it looks like he has gone up to a 3rd horseman here. And, oh, dude, I feel like he's just being baited in. At this stage, you've paid out like half of what this TC costs on the other side. And this does benefit Mister, because one of the brilliant things about the map Altai and playing as the English here is you can play a very condensed base and offset early aggression from unarmored civs because of that double TC fire we just talked about. And in the end, it looks like Mister did go for the deer TC, just going to inflate him quickly towards castle. The whole idea here is he could set up a few farms, but now because he has the deer at his disposal, he could actually get towards King's Pass incredibly quickly and then insulate his wood line with that King's Pass, probably dropping it over here just beyond the council hall, so he has a lot of wood for the farm transition down the line. Barbican on the east side from Bro as well, so he's going to at least cover his flank. Is now going back for the eco gains, which is what I want to see. Cool thing actually about being the Chinese, yes, you're 3 horsemen in, but let's also remember that he can supervise, so he's been getting an extra 20% of certain resources. So realistically, he should be ahead of the English in terms of where his eco's at now. What I'm looking for is whether Mister will be ahead in terms of tech up. Walling is almost complete for Mister. Has got a little bit of an annoying area here to deal with. Like, I don't know if he's going to spot this, but there's a little path by the looks of it that could easily be weaved through by Bruh. So if you do come to palisade this off here, you're probably going to have... Oh, God. Please tell me he's doing here as well. We'll find out. It looks like Mister is keeping the scout in the area, which actually I just want to give a little round of applause. Not enough people do this. Check your pathfinding. Make sure you're actually secure in these areas afterwards. And Bruh, now that he's built these 3 horsemen, we highlighted this as the problem. It was going to be a waste of resources. The problem is he couldn't stop at 1 horseman when he didn't have the info. What this comes down to is like Bra just didn't have optimal scout placement. He blocked himself out of vision, and that was a pretty big error. That led to this extra investment of 240 resources. You can see Mister now getting a sniff on that. Does he realize? I'm wondering if he actually does. Like, if you just try to walk out, you'll find it. But the problem is you have to have a unit in this area to discover. Yeah, there we go. My boy ain't gonna miss it. Mister knows. Get his little wall up. Also prep the stables. This is going to be a castle up. It's going to be very quick as well. Bro, on the other hand, has he been investing in more military? No, it's just the pressure of double TC. And remember that he went on the deer a little bit quicker, so he's almost drained that already. Risky situation now for Bro. Yes, you have that 20% additional drop-off as the Chinese, but what I could quickly see coming into the picture is a need to go towards farms. If that comes into the picture, that's going to set you back heavily. Remember, the English pay half price for farm transitions. 37 wood compared to 75 wood for every other civ. This is pretty quick on the rush up. 14 villagers. King's Pass isn't going to take too long. Meanwhile, outside the base, Bra really never got any value out of this. These 3 horsemen haven't actually done anything in this game. And I wonder, does Bra even suspect it? He now knows the castles come up. He is 2 TC effective, so his goal is now to get castles as quickly as possible. What I think Bra's going to have to do is build a few spears. He's going to have to drop the racks, which isn't the worst play because you can eventually go into Palace Guard anyway. But there's now a risk that knights are going to flood in. Even with this Barbican as a strong point defense, a breach can occur. And you can see initially he's going to go for the walls, but long term this isn't going to save you. He also hasn't walled the exterior areas yet, right? Like you can still be flanked wide here. First knight's coming out. Now, of course, one of the big issues if you try to match knights as Bra is you're doing so after a much later tech up. You're probably going to be 2 or 3 knights behind. However, if your economy is strong enough, the Chinese is one civ that can actually negate that issue due to supervising. So as long as Bra has enough food, he can actually fuel the army. He can match the amount of heavy cavalry coming out from the English. We'll have to see if he opts for that option. I think it comes down to what he sees as his win condition. If he doesn't believe that he needs to press now or doesn't feel like he can get in to press now, it makes more sense to get value for unit by going for spears and save more resources for that farm transition because you realize the game's going to go longer. Tech up complete. Let's see what options going to be. Pass guard is what you want to get to, but you need those spearmen first of all. So wouldn't be surprised if he goes up to 10, 12 spears to guard his flanks, and then maybe goes in some palace guard for eventual raid down into the base. But for now, Mister does have map control, and you can see he's beating him to the punchline, sending out villagers to wall the sides. Keep options open for him and options closed for Bra. This is problematic. The reason why Mister is doing this is he's trying to prevent a play onto the flank resources, which is A, going to force Bra into a quicker farm transition, but B, force him to come out into the mid-map to gain gold. Notice these big gold stacks in the northern corner, he won't be able to access. And then the food stacks in the western, they'll also be blocked out of. It's a pretty crafty move. And now also the monks. Love how Miss is just getting exploitative value here. He's blocking eco out from Bra, but then he's also taking additional eco himself now with the monastery play. He's even yoinking it from right under Bra's nose. First Lancer coming out, so it looks like he has gone for the heavy cavalry play to counter, and he is supervising. This is what I mentioned, like you can actually catch up on cavalry as the Chinese, as long as your food's good enough. But remember, this food is finite. The good news, at least, is Bra's only started this berry patch, so he's covered for 1,500 plus the extra 20%, so 1,800 resources total. Bad news is that with Lancers being so expensive in food, that does disappear quickly. Bra. Oh, I don't know if he gets the villager. Oh, just in time. Okay, so he keeps the northern pass open. The problem is he needs the southern pass more. He has at least killed off the knight. It looks like the villager isn't coming out too quickly, so should still get access to this area. The reason that's important is he needs the deer plus the berries. Lance account. Actually, like, I think he has the lead now, right? Okay, 4-6. So Bra's still behind for the moment, but he should be able to surpass if he continues to supervise. Looks like he hasn't actually got the flexibility to do so, though. Imp officials are busy everywhere. Looks like there's a gather on the stone point. Likely going to be a keep drop in the center here. I think what's going to happen is Bra's going to have to come out to contest mid-map resources as his base begins to dry up. Keep in mind his wood lines are getting thin as well, so he needs a way of kind of grabbing these smaller wood clusters for later on in the game. His other alternative is to play a keep on the west side to secure wood and food. Long term, he definitely needs to think about a gold grab, because if you do want to continue Lancer push and you're eventually going to go into, say, Palace Guard plus the Siege, which you can see Palace Guard now being queued up, you're going to need a lot of gold here. Some people questioning whether Mr. should have went for the second TC. I think it's fine in this situation. He's got enough value out of it. The problem for Bruh is like he had no way in. This is why the trip TC build is fairly effective on Altai, is because you have the ability to wall yourself in pretty efficiently. And you can see the impact of this. Like, even up against the Chinese, Bruh is now trailing by 9 villages. Also, calculate the relics into that. There's already 3 banked for the English, which gives him an extra 7.5 villages. Because remember, the average gathering rate of a villager by default is about 40 resources per minute. And each relic gives you 100 gold per minute. Yeah, Miss is right. I actually love that Miss is giving us the numbers. He's correct. We've seen this before. Like, if you guys are unaware, if you play... So let's say you want to go naked 1 TC into Castle Age as the English. If you play Deer on Altai, you can actually achieve that tech up timing at around 8 minutes. It's pretty impressive what you can do with these type of spawns. But what Mr. done instead is he realized that getting that TC, doing it on the Deer, means you don't have to transition farms as early, and you can quickly get up into Castle and then make the farm transition. So the whole idea, what he's done here is he's leveraged double eco. One of the downsides of the Deer play that I see a lot of players make with the naked Castle Rush build as the English is they get Castle Age, but then they run out of resources, and they're trying to push very expensive military units. So they're trying to end the game very quickly off the back of Castle Age. By going for this eco boom approach to the Deer instead, he gets to actually out eco boom the Chinese, and now that he's fleshed out his farmlands, he actually has good enough eco to continue the war indefinitely in Castle. And because you're playing against the Chinese, you do get away with this more often than not. Because Chinese players don't want to get bogged down in aggression. I actually think that Feudal Age Chugen Nu is underrated, but we mentioned why you don't want to do that in mass early on against the English. Lombos in small quantities beat Chugen Nu. Large quantities, it starts to shift. But that means that the Chinese player is more inclined to go for a greedy boom themselves. And the read by Mr. to actually one-up his opponent's boom was very well crafted. Just like this castle that's now being dropped in his base. Defensive keeper's already placed up by Mr. Important that he got this because he wants the network of citadels. This also means there's less pressure to get a siege workshop, so you save 300 wood. And remember, this was a tech up in Imperial, so Bruh does have to end the game quickly here. Wingard Pass is already starting to craft those armies. Trebuchets will be out in the next minute. That's where Bruh's going to be forced to dive through, but you see crossbows are reacting. Interesting choice to go crossbows, but I love this. I think a lot of players have been sleeping with crossbows for too long. It makes more sense for your opponent to go pass guard. And although Lombos seem like they're valued, let's keep in mind that they're valued in terms of range, but not in terms of damage. Even when they counter spearmen. The difference in damage doesn't make it worthwhile. Pay a little bit more for crossbows, and you have a jack of all trades unit instead of one that requires specific matchups to be a good counter. Mr. B's trying to be annoying here, but they're not sieging quick enough. I like the siege workshop on the front side. Bron now getting the trebs. He's got about 3 minutes to make this work. Because the problem that I do see is you haven't stunted Mr.'s eco. He reached Imperial Age. The upgrades are going to be coming through in the next minute. I do love this play out of Bruh, though. Notice this detail. He's prepping Military Academy. His intent is to end the game in Castle. He can't go back for Imperial now. Because the issue is, you know, you might talk about how powerful the Chinese are Imperial. The reality is the time it would take you to now get Imperial and get all your upgrades and scale your army would mean that Mr. is fully unlocked as the English. English hyper late game is stronger than any other civ in the game. This is ready to show you how strong the late game is. Enclosures did just complete. So gold trickle's coming in hard and fast. He already had plenty of that due to all the relics that he banked. Gets better and better now. And that's why you're now seeing him prep the hand cannoneers, gunpowder infantry here with the attack speed buffer will make short work of anything they face. Only thing he is missing, of course, is anti-siege to deal with the Nesta Bees. He does have the means to get those. For the moment, it's going to be more trebuchets, but he could easily be going into Springhaunts. Nesta Bees can be countered by trebuchets, though, remember. If you get your hands on the shattered projectiles, you can smash them pretty easily, alongside any infantry or whatever you catch standing still. Springhaunts now being prepped by Bruh. I think you might have the wrong read on this, though. Doesn't look like Mr. cares about the Springhaunts directly. He's going trebs, right? So there's no way you can snipe him out. I don't actually think Mr. ever intended to go for Springles himself. Although, if he did, this is once again a losing comp for Bruh. Going for Springles when you're Castle versus Imp means that your opponent can just get shutter triggers and counter you with half the amount of Springles. There's nothing you can do to counter that, especially when you consider these are frontline Springles. They're not clock tower ones, so they don't have that extra 50% health that the Chinese usually would. The Siege is just not cutting it quick enough in any form. Remember, the network of Citadels did come out as well, so the attack speed on these trebuchets for the English is remarkable. That's why the keep the Chinese is dying so much faster. Even though Bro is trying to repair it, just look at the amount of stone that he's burning to do so, and it's just not going to be good enough. Keep goes down, and now he does not even have enough stone to get a new one up. He needs to go back to gathering if he wants to try for it. Right now, he's just floating 700 stone, and it's a complete waste. Surprised he didn't actually do this on the back line. And speaking of the back line, the Knights are in. Oh, bro, he put everything on the front line. This is going to hit hard. Mister is already 20 villages ahead, and that's about to escalate. The farms are only just really set up. Bruh has started to yield a return, and now they're completely idle. He still doesn't realize this is happening. Meanwhile, Bruh's attempts to keep Mister out and away have failed. He's breaking out in the flanks and breaking in on yours. Finally, Bruh reacts, but now it's going to take time to get a counter. Palace Guard aren't going to be good enough. It's going to take a while to get the Spearman out. The idle eco alone is going to flatline Bruh's assault. He needs to be escalating military, and right now he isn't. Look at the count on the front line. Mist has been building up a defense force that's about to turn to an attack force. Everything on the front line is going to die here. The only upside is there's enough here to bait the Knights long enough that the villagers maybe get away, but everything else is going to be sold out. Trebuchet, Springles, Nesta Bees, all gone. 4K plus in investment on this front line has just disappeared. And at the same time, Bruh's eco stagnated entirely, down to about 300 food per minute. And this keep, this is a please don't come at me fast keep. Problem is, I don't think Mist is going to actually oblige that. He's got Knights, he can wrap around, he doesn't even need to take the fight directly. You also haven't re-walled here. A lot of exposed entry points into your base. I wouldn't be surprised if Mister just dives past. Instead, though, he'll do the classic English. Slow crawling. He's got trebuchets, there's no rush. He'll move his way slowly across the battlefield and start to take down these defenses. Bruh is scrambling at this point. Just trying to rebuild a defense force. He's nowhere near pop cap. When was the last time you saw this? 23 minutes into the game, English at 200 pop cap and the Chinese at 100. Most of it is admittedly villages. But even with most of it being villages, he's still 40 villages behind the English. Soon to be more. Rush in. Spearman not able to hold against the Elite Knights. They're just too tanky. One-on-one, they will pull you apart. Add in the hand cannoneers. Add in the trebuchets, getting rid of the strong point defenses. And this is washed. This is over. Bruh has nowhere recovering it. Mister might spend plenty of time in the farms, but apparently spending plenty of times in the fields pays off more than playing plenty of AoE 2 here, as he's able to take out Bruh very cleanly in this matchup. Yeah, really impressive players out of Mister. I actually love the way he went in for the TC. I agree with his approach to this matchup. Like, I think it looks really ugly and awkward when you see English players try to like double down against Chinese on Altai. Choke points make it difficult. Barbican can block out one assault point entirely down the line. And also in the interim, if you try to leverage Lombos too hard, your opponent is going to supervise horsemen and spam them, and he will beat your first army out. That's the cool thing that Mister done at the beginning of this game. He forced a 360 resource investment in horsemen, not to mention the 150 would early on into the stables that became useless, and all he had to do instead in return rather, was invest 180 resources. That good trade put him ahead. Then he goes on to Deer at a quicker timing than his opponent. Like, these certain elements put him really far ahead. It's actually crafty the way that he utilized this. Like, this is the way that you can do the 2 TC build quickly as the English. By going on that deer, it unlocked a very fast castle timing, and then he goes back for the farms. One big problem I've seen with a lot of these deer castle age rushes for the English is the deer get you there, but then when you try to push mass knights, you don't actually have the scalability in your economy to do so. The difference with the build that Mr. done here is he actually insulated himself and continued to escalate his eco through farms. And he had enough villages by the time he arrives in castle that he's reaping enough food off of berries as well to cover his initial knights while he's also setting up those farms. Pretty crafty play there. Something that's definitely going to work when you're up against more defensive civs, ones that want to be greedy like the Chinese. Might fall flat when you're up against civs like the French or the Abbasids, but definitely works well against the Chinese.